So now, in the next few modules, we're going to change the orientation. We're going to move a little bit away from software development, and we're going to move a little bit away from some of the external view of the company, and we're going to talk more about Rational internally, our culture and our values, and then from there we'll move into more things that are specific to the product group. But in order to do this, we have to, in the next module, talk about Rational's three constituencies. And sort of the thought experiment that we want to perform here at this point is to promote you all to CEO of Rational. Okay? So, imagine for a minute that you're now responsible for the company. And the trick is to figure out who, as CEO, you have to sort of keep happy, right? Because if that's true at that level, it's got to be true to a greater extent at all levels in the company. So it turns out, there's really three constituencies that are important. And this is true not only at Rational, but at all companies. And I list them in this order very specifically because I do believe customers are the most important. I mean, without customers, we don't have revenues. Without revenues, we don't have profits. Without profits, we can't keep the company in business. So customers are actually fundamental. Very closely behind customers, obviously, are employees. Because without employees to build the products, market the products, sell the products, support the products, you won't have customers for very long, right? So employees are obviously an important constituency. And then there's the stockholders. And stockholders are important because legally they actually own the company, okay? And it's important to keep stockholders happy. Why is that? Well, happy stockholders on the margin will tend to buy more stock, which will tend to push the stock price up, right? Unhappy stockholders will tend to sell the stock, which will tend to push the price down. So as much as possible, we want to keep stockholders happy. Now, most of the time, in most of the things that we do, it's good for all three constituencies at the same time. But not always. Sometimes something could be good for one of these constituencies and maybe not so good for one of the other constituencies. So in order to understand that and analyze that, the very first thing we have to do is look at what the expectations are of each of these constituencies. In other words, what does each one of these constituencies want to get out of Rational? Okay, what are they looking for? So let's talk about customers first. How do we know this information, by the way? How do we find this out? Vulcan mind meld, or we ask, we talk to them, right? I mean, our salespeople, our tech reps are talking with customers all the time. We have customer advisory boards. We have user conferences. Tech support does a quarterly survey of our customers. Did you know that? Our executives talk with their executives. I mean, there's a lot of exchange. So what do customers want? Well, the main thing they want is they want us to add real value. They're not interested in shelfware. Okay? Remember from our previous discussions that we're building long-term relationships with our customers. Okay? So they want us to help them solve their problems. They want tools that work, tools that are easy to use, and they want us to have a positive impact on their business performance. Okay? I mean, they want to see a bottom line effect that by using Rational, they can improve their performance. Market leadership is important. It's always easier to pick Hertz than to pick Avis. They want a good business relationship. They want us to meet our commitments, have good ethics, and by and large be easy to work with. Now, all of you deal with companies all the time. You know in your own personal lives how annoying it is to deal with a company that's hard to deal with. I mean, it's aggravating, right? I mean, you're paying them money, and it's hard to get what you need from them. And as soon as you can, you're going to change companies, right? I mean, that's as soon as those switching, you can figure a way around those switching costs, you're going to jump. So this is very important, especially given the long-term nature of our business. They want us to have an empathy for their business. Now, that's kind of hard to do. Why is that hard to do? Well, you saw the very broad spectrum of businesses that we cover. It would be really hard to develop expertise in each and every one of those application areas. The way we cover that, actually, is with the field teams. Okay? We depend on the field teams to get close to their customer and understand the specifics of their domain and their application. And that's much easier to do than trying to develop that expertise inside. Because inside, you're not close enough to the customer. But in the end, this is what they're looking for. They want us to be the pros from Dover. They want us to help them solve their really hard software development problems. They look to us as, their partner in this activity. So that's what customers want. What about employees? Now, it'll be interesting on this slide to see if we can match up this list with what you all said about why you came to Rational, why you joined Rational. It'll be interesting to see if some of those themes show up again. One of the ones that we hear the most frequently is that people come to Rational because they want to make a difference. They want to change the way software is developed. They want to have an impact on the industry. And they believe that Rational is the kind of company at which they can do that. Okay? A lot of people come to Rational for personal growth and development. They feel it's a good place to work. There's lots of good people here. They'll get to work on hard problems. They'll get to work with good teams. They'll be stretched. And there's an opportunity to grow professionally. Many people come from companies that have been unpleasant to work at, very political. People more interested in, personal advancement than in getting the job done. Companies where you can't trust the person in the next cubicle to not stab you in the back. And one of the things that we've always insisted on at Rational is a high-trust environment. We're going to talk more about that in the next module. But when people interview here, they sense a bunch of ethical, competent people who have a shared set of objectives, and also a sense of empowerment to do the right thing, that people are not micromanaged here. And the other thing we hear a lot is people want to be accountable. They've come from companies where people are not held accountable, and they feel they can't be successful because a lot of the people around them are not held accountable for getting things done. Sustainable lifestyle is very important. We all work very hard here at Rational. We work long hours. It's true in at least two areas almost more systematically than others. We see it in the field when tech reps spend a lot of time working at the customer sites far away from their homes and their families, and they just burn out from just too much of that. And we see it in the development organization as well when people get close to product deliveries, have to spend lots and lots of hours during the final crunch to get things out. That's okay from time to time, but you can't be in crunch mode all the time. We know that. So, the trick is to try to have some balance and to not burn people out. And finally, people are looking for financial reward in lots of different forms. And what they always tell us is they want it to be performance-based. They want it to be coupled to their contribution. Now, of course, every employee is going to rank order these things differently. Okay? No two employees are going to have the same priority. But, is there anything here that's not on this list that, you came to Rational for? Or has this list captured pretty much, the reasons that you're here? I'd be very interested in that feedback. Okay, so that's what employees are looking for, by and large. And then there's the stockholders. And what are the stockholders looking for? Well, everybody always says, well, stockholders just want a high share price. And that's not actually true. What shareholders are really looking for is a consistent, positive, and predictable growth path. Okay? They want to see financial performance that does this. They don't want to see this. Okay? They don't want to see something that looks like a seismograph. They want to see market leadership, especially for this reason. If you're the market leader, you have a lot more control over your own destiny. They want to see sustainable growth, okay, and that means you have to set expectations and meet them. And they want to see a high return over time. So over time, they do want to see the share price appreciate, either that or some other form of return on investment. So as you can see, these three constituencies have actually fairly different expectations and desires. Okay? The shareholders do not have, program or professional development at the top of their list of what they're looking for, right? So why is this a problem? Well, first of all, people can be in more than one constituency, right? I mean, you're all employees, but you're also all shareholders through options and ESPP. So you can be in more than one constituency at a time. Customers can own shares, right? So customers can be both customers and shareholders because shares are publicly traded. Actually, you're in all three constituencies, come to think of it, because you're customers also. You don't pay for the products, but you use them. So do these constituencies ever come into conflict? Well, actually, from time to time they do, and let me give you a few examples. The first one I'll use is a developer who is working on a feature of a product and becomes really, really interested in this feature. I mean, it's really, he becomes fascinated with it, and he's learning a lot about it, and he's spending a lot of time on this feature. But from the customer's point of view, maybe this feature is not really that important. Okay, so what's happening here? Okay, the developer is getting a lot of psychic reward and professional growth and satisfaction from working on this particular problem. But from the customer's point of view, he'd rather actually that the time be spent on something else that's more important to him. So in this little dynamic, the developer or the employee is being favored over the customer. Okay? From the customer's point of view, it would be better if that developer worked on something else. Another example, in the field sometimes, when customers get in trouble, you'll see tech reps who will move mountains to help that customer. And maybe in the long run, that's not a bad idea because they're building customer loyalty, right? That customer's going to remember that, hopefully. But in the short term, what's happening? The customer is being favored over the shareholder, right? Because the tech rep is spending a disproportionate amount of money helping that customer, and that's impacting Rational's financial performance. So that's also a situation that's out of balance. Another example is from time to time we have to close an office. An office becomes economically not viable. And when that happens, we try to relocate people geographically. But a lot of times people can't relocate. And so then we have severance packages and things like that. That's always painful, okay? That's always painful for the employee. But if we were to keep that office open, that would be a mistake in terms of the shareholders, right? Because we would then be favoring the employees over the shareholders. So you can envision lots of situations where these constituencies, from time to time, one constituency will be favored over another. And that's kind of inevitable. What you have to do is put it in context of all the decisions that are made over a long period of time. And what you have to look for is to make sure that no constituency is ever consistently neglected. Because if any one of the three constituencies are ever consistently neglected, then the company will fail, right? If your customers are always getting the short end of it, eventually that's not going to work. Same thing for the employees, same thing for the shareholders. So in any individual case, it may be that there's a slight imbalance. What you have to look for is, over the broad spectrum of decisions, does it all pretty much come out even? And that's an important context for thinking about decisions and, a lot of the things that the company does. We have a few slides here that are sort of here because there was not much else place to put them. This is a small org chart of the senior executive team. There's a slide here that has all the engineering locations. In Tokyo, I believe all we do is the localization for Japan. What's in Valbonne? Do you know, Dave? I don't know what's there. This is a map of the worldwide sales offices, although it only includes half the world. Left out the Americas. If 16 years ago, when I started at Rational, somebody had told me that someday I'd be standing up in front of a group of Rational employees and telling them about our office in Kuala Lumpur, I would have told them, you're crazy. But we actually have a sales office in Kuala Lumpur. I have no idea what kind of software they develop in Kuala Lumpur. And we have technical support all over. We have 4 major centers now, and I think we can pretty much do follow the sun support. I think any hour of the day now you can call a support center and get somebody live at one of these locations.